Greenwashing is pretty much the term that a company kind of looks around and they're like, okay, people really value sustainability initiatives. And so we're going to go ahead and come out and say that we're eco-friendly, but because we're going to take advantage of that term because there's really no regulation on what eco-friendly even means. And so they don't have to have anything to back up what they're saying. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Mind, Body, Planet podcast. So happy that you have returned. It is a solo episode today. We're going to be talking about 6 ways to spot greenwashing. We'll get into it. What is greenwashing? How can you spot it out and about? And why it's important to know when brands are greenwashing. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's solo episode. This is something I have a ton of experience in. My former life before I did content creation full-time was advertising and marketing. So I know exactly what to look for when it comes to greenwashing because, well, that was my former life. I have a ton of experience in knowing what that looks like. Before we get into it, this week's favorite is going to be my Ilia lip balm. I don't even know what they call this. What do they call this? This balmy tint hydrating lip balm in the color Memoir. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I've been learning a lot about Ilia actually lately and how their products are made in Italy, I believe. And they have like some of the highest standards of clean ingredients. And I want to say Ilia has some sustainable initiatives as well, which is also pretty dang cool if you ask me. So that is my this week's favorites. I don't really have anything else. Life has been a little bit hectic lately. Just feel like there's been a lot of traveling and a lot of trying to catch up with work and figuring out what I want to do with this whole thing. And that could be an episode in and of itself because I just feel like there's a lot swirling around in my head. And, you know, I love this podcast and this is such a huge part of my life now and feels so healing whenever I get to be able to have guests on the podcast and just want it to continue to grow in a positive direction. So I feel like as a business owner, a team of one, it's really only me over here. I do all of the editing, I do all of the sound and all that stuff. And I haven't really looked into having somebody edit these before, but I think I found somebody that I think they're going to start chipping in a little bit and helping me out, at least with the editing portion of these episodes. And just trying to figure out, you know, as a business owner, like, how do we continue to grow and scale this thing and reach a wider audience to spread this message of having a sustainable life for your mind and your body and, of course, the planet too. So those are all things that have been just kind of living in my head and, you know, how I want to go about this. So speaking of which, shameless plug here. If you could please give a review for the podcast on Spotify or Apple, that would be absolutely amazing. It means a lot. It helps it to become more discoverable for other people to find it. If you do like something in an episode, I would highly encourage you or offer, you know, the idea to share it with your friends and your family, either on social media or even just clicking the share link and sending it to somebody that you love that could learn and benefit from one of these episodes. These are all things that really help the podcast continue to grow so we can continue to reach a wider audience. I appreciate you guys all for listening. I'm going to go ahead and plug this as well. I have a monthly newsletter that goes out on the first of every month. I've designed it to kind of feel like a warm hug where you open it up and you see that it's a bunch of good climate news and a lot of really cool things going on in the health and wellness space as well. So if that newsletter is something that you are interested in joining, I will link that in the show notes so you can go ahead and join that way as well. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into 6 ways to spot greenwashing. First of all, what is greenwashing? It is kind of a unique term, greenwashing. It's like, what does that even mean? I don't know who deemed who coined the term greenwashing. Actually, let's look it up. Okay. So the term greenwashing was coined by a New York environmentalist named Jay Westerveld in 1986. It was in an essay about the hotel industry's practice of placing notices in bedrooms prompting reuse of towels to, quote, save the environment, unquote. So that's where the term was coined. But essentially, greenwashing is pretty much the term that a company kind of looks around and they're like, okay, people really value sustainability initiatives. And so we're going to go ahead and come out and say that we're eco-friendly, but because we're going to take advantage of that term because there's really no regulation on what eco-friendly even means. And so they don't have to have anything to back up what they're saying. So for example, you may see a really large company take their logo for something like Earth Month, which is April, by the way, in case you didn't know that, and take their logo and just turn it green and then put it as like their social media profile photos. That's an example of greenwashing, and that is rampant. You see that in so many things because all they're doing is just taking their logo, turning it green, and sticking it on social media. There's nothing to back up anything other than turning their logo green. It could be the worst company in the world, and they're like, wow, we're so great. Look at us with our green logo. So that's an example of greenwashing. Another example of greenwashing is fast fashion is inherently really awful for the environment because they are churning out so many styles and creating these micro trends is kind of the term that people use. And people buy these clothes or use them a few times. They end up ripping, breaking, and then they get thrown away because they're not in good quality anymore. So you can't donate them or really do much with them because, well, they're broken and they have to be thrown away. So fast fashion, not good. But fast fashion brands will often have a conscious line of clothing. H&M has their conscious line. I think Shein came out with one. Boohoo came out with one. And I think one of the Kardashians was the spokesmodel for the Boohoo sustainability collection. And those are typically all, again, greenwashing. There's really not much to them that is actually environmentally friendly other than some of those words and phrases that go about it. Those are just some examples to help you understand what greenwashing is. So it's when a company takes sustainability and these words and they say, oh yeah, we're really great for the environment, and they're not actually doing anything to back up those claims. So how can you spot when companies are greenwashing? Number one is you're going to look for those terms. If a company is saying that they're a green brand, look at our green product, or we have eco-friendly packaging, and it's still wrapped in plastic. If a company says that they're all natural, those are commonly used terms, again, that aren't truly regulated much, if at all. So they can just use these words without having to provide anything to back it up. So if you see a brand using these words like eco-friendly, all natural, green, raises a little bit of yellow flags there. You kind of want to look into it a little bit more, see if they actually have any kind of initiatives to back up what they're saying. If they don't, greenwashing. If they do, light greenwashing potentially. We don't know. We'll have to look into it a little bit more, which gets me into number two. These are things to look for. Again, if you see these terms, you want to go to the company's website or even just on the packaging. A lot of times the packaging will have these certifications as well, but you want to look for certifications. So it can't just be a homemade logo that they shove on there that says eco-friendly. It needs to be a third-party certification. So for example, if it's food, it should have USDA organic, which is a verified third-party certification that costs money for the brand to be able to confirm that it is organic to put on that food. If the brand says that it is cruelty-free, if they just, again, have a homemade logo with a little bunny ear that says cruelty-free on their bottle, on their packaging, but it doesn't have the Leaping Bunny certification or it doesn't have the PETA certification, the actual verified logo to say that these are approved by these organizations, that is greenwashing. It needs to have the third-party verification from Leaping Bunny or PETA. So don't be fooled if a company looks like it has a real certification on it and doesn't actually. Number three, if it's a large company, research the history of that company. So some large companies that I do like are Burt's Bees, The Body Shop, and even Dr. Bronner's. Those are all companies that have been around for a long time. And in their history, they started out as a company that wanted more sustainable values. Even larger companies, if you go into some other ones that maybe weren't really traditionally eco-friendly or had those values in the past, but maybe those are things that they're trying to get into now, they should be releasing things on their website like an environmental or sustainability report that is very comprehensive. It should be at least 40 pages, if not 50. They should have information on their website that is easy to find. They should have a sustainability tab or a values tab or under their About Us should have more information with articles and with actual stats and numbers of what they are doing to be more eco-friendly, especially if it is a large corporation and brand. They have the money, they have the funding to have these certifications and to have these reports done. So they need to have them. If they don't really have them, normally that's a bit of a red flag for me, that they're just saying they're doing better but have nothing to actually back it up, which is greenwashing. Like we said, there's a slight nuance to this one. A lot of these go for major big corporations. If you have a small local company, to get these third-party certifications and to get these sustainability reports cost money. And so sometimes these brands, even though they source from fair trade, they can't afford the fair trade certification. Or if it's organic, they can't afford the organic certification. So those are all things that if it is a small enough company, you should be able to just reach out to them via email and verify these things. Because most times smaller companies just don't have the funding to be able to afford those things. So that is the nuance. However, this is not the case for huge, large corporations and companies. If you can go to your local grocery store and see it on the shelf, chances are it probably has the funding to be able to get these certifications and these reports completed. That's my standard. Number 4, the fourth way that you can spot greenwashing is I want you to look at the product and I want you to consider the life cycle of that product. If it is a product that is intended to be disposable, chances are it's probably a bit of greenwashing if they're using these eco-friendly terms, because anything that is meant to be overconsumed and just be thrown away at the end of its life, or whenever the shirt tears or breaks, it's not intended to be repaired, to be reworn or reused. I would personally say that that is probably a little bit of greenwashing. Again, a little bit of nuance to this. If it is a disposable coffee cup, or even I saw like Igloo now has like cardboard looking coolers, like, you know, they used to be styrofoam. I think they probably still have the styrofoams out there, but now they have one that's like made out of paper. So those I would say are probably more eco-friendly versions, and I would not say that those are probably greenwashing, because they're just trying to provide an alternative for people who are going to use those products anyway. So if it's a compostable plastic coffee cup, or if it's, you know, a compostable Igloo cooler like I just mentioned, I would say that those are probably leaning towards being a more sustainable option. But if it's something like a t-shirt, or I don't know, maybe a toothbrush, whatever it might be, just consider the life cycle of that product, because even if it's made with eco-friendly materials, it could still be packaged in plastic or transported in an unsustainable way. So again, kind of going back to the certifications, which is also so important here, there are many carbon neutral certifications that a brand can basically purchase, which can help offset those carbon emissions. Once it breaks, can it be recycled? Can it be reused? These are the kind of thoughts that are really essential to determining if a product is actually greenwashing. Okay, number 5, marketing. How is a company marketing their product? If they are doing some heavy lifting in something like Earth Month, but they don't ever do anything else for the rest of the year, then that's showing some warning signs of greenwashing for me. Also, if a company is focusing on how eco-friendly this certain product is versus the quality of the product or how effective the product is, could be a sign of greenwashing as well. Be vigilant on that. Last but not least, be skeptical of any of these claims and terms that you're going to see. So if you see something that says it's chemical free, if you see something that says 100% natural, just be skeptical of those claims. Like, I always like to think that it's greenwashing until proving me otherwise, because things like if it says chemical free, for example, everything is pretty much made of chemicals. So it seems a little wonky to me to tell me it's chemical free when it's a cleaning product. And even in some ways, some natural ingredients can still be harmful for the environment if they are not sourced sustainably, or if the product is not used responsibly. So an example of that would be like palm oil is considered a natural ingredient, but palm oil, if not sourced sustainably, is just truly awful for the environment and awful for communities that harvest palm oil. Okay, those are my 6 tips for spotting greenwashing. So just to fly through them one more time for anybody who just wants a quick little too long didn't listen, too long didn't read, little recap here. The first one is looking for misleading terms. The second one is checking for a third-party certification. 3, you want to research the company's history. 4, consider the life cycle of the product. 5, look at the company's marketing. does it seem a little fishy to you? And number 6 is to be skeptical of any claims that a brand is trying to put forward that seems too eco-friendly or doesn't quite make sense. Greenwashing is actually rampant. If you look around, the more you learn about it, the more you're going to be able to see it. And unfortunately, it's just everywhere, especially because sustainability is becoming something that people are more interested in supporting. So just be vigilant, look around and keep your eyes open. Don't believe every single thing that you see. Just because a logo has a leaf on the logo doesn't mean that it's an eco-friendly product. Dig a little bit deeper before you fully believe what somebody's telling you. You can also definitely look around and find other eco-influencers around that do the work for you and just support those brands that they support. Or you can even dive in and do the research for yourself, which I always recommend doing the research for yourself, but I know not everybody has that time and that luxury to do so. If you're interested in learning about more ways on how to spot greenwashing, I actually have a freebie. It's totally free on my website. I'm going to link that in the show notes for anybody interested. You just have to put your email in there, and then I will email you over the link to the freebie. It's a PDF about 6 pages, I believe, and it kind of gets into a little bit more of the nuances along with some visual examples of what these fake certifications look like versus the real ones and things like that. So if that's something you're interested in, you can totally check that out in the show notes. Okay, we have made it to the Good Climate News section. This week's article is titled, "Let Weeds and Climbers Grow to Help Wildlife Beat Heat," says Top Gardener. So this is an article from The Guardian, and essentially gardeners are saying to let the weeds grow. If you have weeds that go through your deck, if you have weeds that go through like concrete cracks in your sidewalk, let them go for this time. It's so hot outside because obviously we're still in summer heat. I would say August is probably one of the hottest months, at least here in Texas. So some of the advice to kind of help wildlife be able to manage this heat and survive in it is to cover your fences and garden walls with plants, let weeds grow in your patio to help wildlife beat the heat. So for example, this gardener that the article kind of quotes is named Jo Thompson. They're a garden designer, but she's created a space that includes a bog garden for dragonflies and is filled with many native plants in her region, as well as drought-tolerant species. So that way it allows for birds and insects and things like that, a place to kind of have like a little habitat that is going to help them survive this really awful summer that has been way too hot. So I'm going to be doing this in my yard. I've been thinking about this for a while, is just having even something as simple as like a bird bath. So I think that's something that I am going to try and do myself in my backyard. Anyways, the article, as always, is linked below in the show notes. If you are interested in reading the full thing, I do recommend it. I always recommend reading the articles because I just find them so fascinating. As always, you can follow the podcast on Instagram at Mind Body Planet Podcast. You can follow me at Crystal and Geyer on TikTok, Instagram, as well as YouTube and Threads. If you have any questions related to greenwashing or sustainable living, my DMs are normally open. So go ahead and send it on over. You can also email me. The email is hello@crystalandgeyer.com. And that is this week's episode. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next Monday.